The last 6 months, I would say I had zero confidence in myself. I lost kind of who I was. So I think over the last probably month or two, I've gone back into that. I'm an expert. That's really what I am. I'm great at PR, I'm great at marketing, great at social. So those things I should spend my time and go and hire, they say hire people better than you and move out of the way. That's what I've learned. Massive lesson.
This is The Summit by Fields Adventures. I'm David Newns, and every week, my co-founder Dominic McGregor and I will be talking to inspirational leaders about their experiences as they strive towards their summit. Hi everyone, thanks for joining us here at The Summit, Fields Adventures podcast, where we talk to amazing leaders and founders of companies all over the UK who are on their own personal journeys to reach their summit. Today we're here with Carrie from Rise at 7. She founded this business and is here today to talk to us about her journey. Thanks for joining us, Carrie.
Thank you for inviting me.
Carrie, talk to us a little bit about the CEO of Rise at 7. All I see is all the great things you guys are doing. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about how that journey started?
Yeah. What
you guys actually do for the people who don't know, and where you want to go.
Quite a long story, so I'll try to keep it short. So I've worked in agencies pretty much all my life, ever since I graduated. And there was a period in my agency life where I started doing freelance, and I was earning, loads of money doing freelance rather than my actual job. And there was a kind of period where I thought, maybe I could start my own business doing this. I kind of saw some of the big agencies being bought out, some of them being merged around. And actually, I think somebody needed to come in and shake up the industry a little bit. And I had lots of ambition, lots of ideas. So there was a bit of a random moment where I applied for The Apprentice, the BBC TV show, went through the whole round of auditions. There was about 40,000 people that applied. Long story short, I made it to the final 30. I was about to get investment from, Lord Sugar's team and talking about different deals options. And essentially they said, you need to go get private investment instead. Go start this business as fast as you can. So within 2 weeks, I got private investment and I asked a co-founder to join me, and we launched the business literally as fast as possible. And that was in June 2019. So I think we're about 3 years. I'm losing track of time. So June 2019, we started the agency, just us two, and we had a little bit of money behind us, not massive, but what that gave is confidence to go and run at speed, basically. Go and get some of the biggest brands we could imagine, dream of working with. Basically, there was a moment really where we won a global account, and it was fashion brand Missguided. It was interesting because basically I got invited to do a talk on stage at a conference with about 5,000 people. And it was my first ever conference, pretty nervous. And I stood on stage and it was packed. Yeah. And I got very lucky that day because there was some important people stood in that audience who heard me talk. And they'd already done a pitch process with agencies, but they basically thrown it all away and said, we want to hire you guys. We won the global account on the spot. And then from winning that account, the next 6 months was probably the most craziest 6 months of my life. Yeah. We got contacted by PLT, who then the whole Boohoo group said, fire Missguided, we'll pay you double. Then we had Game and PlayStation and Xbox and May.com and Halfords. It flew in. Yeah. So we became this kind of small agency figuring it out to this scaling agency at speed. And obviously this was kind of pandemic times as well. Yeah. We had about 3 or 4 months of normality. And when the pandemic hit, we thought, this is going to last 2 weeks. We're going to get through it. And we had lots of confidence, the business was doing well. So we thought we'll just get through it. But that lasted, 2 years, 3 years maybe. Wow. We scaled the business extremely fast. And now we're 3 years old, actually just gone into our 4th year. And we have 100 staff across 4 offices and now New York.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations. That sounds like incredible. How do you scale a business so quickly and hire the right people and keep the culture and also make sure that you're servicing all these people that have trusted you, because you're a young company, they've taken the bet, right? Yeah. How do you balance those 3 things? And did you or not? Or
no.
Right, okay.
I was trying to think of a way to blag that, but I was like, no, we didn't balance it. Yeah. To be honest, I think, do you know what, when I speak to a lot of agency owners or even business owners, I think a lot of people start their businesses by figuring out processes. They figure out the business plan, where they're going to get money from, who are the people they're going to hire. I didn't worry about any of those things. Yeah. All I focused on is sales. Okay. Someone told me something and they said, if you get sales right, everything else falls into place. Because money buys you time, it buys you people, it buys you confidence. Everything else falls into place as long as you get money coming in the business. So that's what I focused on. All I did is sold. I sold, sell, and then the rest of it fell into place. I think definitely we went wrong. There's a lot of processes that need to be in place. It was probably 2 years in, we started to hire operational people. Yeah. So as you can imagine, it was pretty chaos. Yeah. We had a way of working, and I think it wasn't the best, but what it allowed us at the time, when I think back, it was probably the fastest we ran in terms of speed, getting work out the door. It was the most creative work that I've ever seen. So it worked.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, perceived quality, I guess creativity is what
Literally.
you sell, right?
Yeah.
That's your asset. Wow.
So if I look back and go, right, okay, well, it was hard
Yeah.
and it probably wasn't the easiest on people, including myself. You know, there was times where I slept in the office. I did. I was working 12-hour days. I didn't go home on weekends. I literally was sat eating pizza whilst, you know, working at 3 a.m, doing what I loved. And that was okay for me though.
Yeah.
Like I loved it. It was probably the best times of actually my life. And a lot of people surrounded me and wanted the same. They wanted to build something incredible because there was opportunity there. So a lot of people jumped on that. But I think the pandemic impacted us overnight. It was like people woke up and decided, I don't want this work-life balance. I want to be, you know, X, Y, Z. And obviously I was like, okay, well, if it's not for you, then obviously happy for you to leave because I don't want to hold people in this business. But I also had to realize I needed to cut that down myself.
Yeah.
I needed to slow it down, take a breather, realize how we can actually scale this. You know, you can scale to a certain part, but trying to get past that hurdle is the impossible thing. So I think there was a moment of realization for me of what I needed to do to get past that next barrier. That makes sense.
You kind of had this like rapid growth.
Yeah.
Then you have to kind of suss out how to make this sustainable in terms of
Exactly.
processes, people, you know, operational capability. Do you think your business is as good now? You've put those processes in place. Is it better or is it worse than that initial period?
I would say the business in itself is better, but I think there's a lot of things that I miss and I'm trying to get back. I think what we've gone through is, you know, there's this start up to scale up. And I think what I realized is we was reinventing the wheel every time. So we would run campaigns or marketing strategies for clients and it was like reinventing the wheel every single time. Yeah. And then I also read this thing on LinkedIn, I think it was, and it said, build once, sell twice. And it's basically if you build a process once, you should be able to repeat that 100 times. Yeah. And that's what I realized we was doing, but just reinventing the wheel every time, which is why it was so tiring. So I basically went through all of our departments and I looked at what is the thing we're repeatedly selling. Yeah. And I think that's, again, it went back to sales because I think often agencies and businesses in general makes sales really complicated. So my focus over the last 12 months is make everything simple. I think what I did wrong in the first year and a half, something like that, I started splitting the agency out into departments and teams and things like that so much that I think I had about 8 departments. Wow. You know, before I had 1 or 2. Yeah. And then I split it to 8 departments because I kind of commercially thought this department can start making revenue, this one can make revenue.
The more departments, the more revenue.
More revenue. But then it become overcomplicated. It slowed things down. It become a bit of a conveyor belt. So, you know, when you have a conveyor belt system, you put something on there and it moves to the next one, it moves to the next one. And that's what slowed us down, a lack of initiative and a lack of innovation. Yeah. So over the last 12 months, I've simplified everything and we've pretty much gone back to 2 teams. Wow. And that's what I've realized about business, I think, is just don't overcomplicate things just because you think it makes commercial sense to get more revenue. Actually simplify things. It makes you faster, more creative, and that's the things that our clients at the minute are paying for.
You obviously came into the industry because you wanted to disrupt the status quo.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that you don't become just like those people you wanted to disrupt? Oh my God,
that's the hardest thing. I was thinking about this on the way here because I think there's a lot of people that have probably gone against the way we work, especially in search and marketing. They don't like change. So when you are changing the way that you work and as a marketing agency or client side, because our jobs is to also get clients to change the way they do things. So it's very difficult to kind of encourage that across the board, really. And I think I've had a lot of pushback. I've had a lot of, you know, probably pressure to do things everybody else's way. And often I've fell into that trap and gone, you know, maybe I should be a bit more like them. Maybe I should be running the business a little bit more smoothly or over there, what they're doing and hiring people from agencies that are 25 years old. Yeah. And then I've realized massive mistakes when I've done that. There's times where I've hired people from big agencies, you know, senior people that have been there, done that, and they come and bring what worked there. And I'm like, it doesn't work here. Yeah. You know, we're so fast and nimble and the way we work is what people are buying from us. So I think I've had a lot of, you know, imposter syndrome, a lot of, am I doing this the right way? Because it's a very different way. Yeah. Like my COO, he's worked in multiple agencies. He was the director at Mother, McCann, Forever Beta. He's basically been around the block. He knows what works and doesn't. And he even said, Carrie, I've never seen an agency like Rise at 7, but it's frigging brilliant. Yeah. And he was like, the way it works is tiring. It's like, you know, it's like a summit. You're climbing up, you know, it feels tiring for everybody, but it works. And that's what it's nothing that anyone's experienced before. So yeah, being forced into what everybody else is doing is often kind of like it feels like you're being pulled in one way, and you just have to kind of keep the confidence and just snap it out of it, if that makes sense.
Bring it back to your belief and your passion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
So sales, a lot of companies, always start, the salesperson's always the founder. They get out there, they build an initial customer base, and those customers make relationships with that individual. Yeah. And they make the promise because they say, look, please believe in me.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. And then you try and scale and you think, okay, let's bring in some other commercial people.
Yeah.
How's that work today? Are you still the salesperson? Is basically the question I'm trying to ask. I
have multiple salespeople now. Yeah. What I've realised is other agencies and other businesses go wrong is they hire salespeople, commercial people. Yeah. What you need is experts. Yeah. The experts are the ones that sell. They're the ones that make the most money, and that's what I realised. So I have basically all of my heads of departments. I have my head of PR, head of SEO, social, influencer, whatever it is. They're the salespeople. Yeah. And I'm an expert. I class myself as, I'm not the best at building an operational business. What I'm very good at is selling like products, selling services. So we all have our own role to play. So I think I still have that sales role, but really what my role is showing the world what makes us different, what is our proposition, and then the rest of the guys kind of sign the deal, really.
And that's your authentic self, right?
Literally.
You believe in that. That's what your passion is. That's what your mandate is as the CEO, right? Yeah. To make sure that you are that disruptor in the industry.
Yeah, and I think where I've probably gone wrong, admittedly, I've spent a lot of my time doing the things I'm really bad at.
Okay.
It sent me extremely depressed.
Yeah.
Someone said to me the other day, I haven't seen you post much on social media. You used to be kind of like, you couldn't escape me, basically.
Yeah. No, I know.
Yeah. And they said you went a little bit quiet and, are you okay, basically? And I just said, I'm not going to lie, I've probably had the worst 6 months of my life. And when I reflect, why is that? I was just in a role that I just wasn't enjoying and not good at.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes people feel that kind of imposter syndrome, makes people feel like they're not good enough. I completely lacked confidence. And that's a big part, I think, of getting to the top of that mountain and achieving those goals. You have to have confidence. Without confidence, you're not going to be able to get there. So, the last 6 months, I would say I had zero confidence in myself. Yeah. I lost kind of who I was. So I think over the last probably month or two, I've gone back into that. I'm an expert. That's really what I am. Yeah. I'm great at PR, I'm great at marketing, great at social. So those things I should spend my time and go and hire, they say hire people better than you and move out of the way. That's what I've learned. Massive lesson.
It's a roller coaster journey of emotions, right?
Yeah.
It's quite a strong thing to do, to say, look, I was actually, depressed, and now I've made a choice to do something different.
Yeah.
That's a lot easier said than done, right? I mean, how do you even
You just made me tingle. It made me think about it.
How do you even know? I mean, it's quite a big thing to even know that's what the issue is, right?
Oh, yeah. It took a lot of months for me to realise that. Yeah. I think
people around you? Do you have how was it just yourself kind of thinking about this stuff? Or?
Yeah, I have people around me, my partner and my board. So my COO, Nick, who I mentioned just then, he's probably the most supportive person I've ever met in my life. He knows what I'm good at, and he's very honest about that as well. He says, you are great at these things and you're really bad at these things. Yeah. And sometimes you have to hear that, take it on board and take it on the chin. And I was okay with that. But I think there was a moment where I didn't think I was good at anything. And I was worried about how could I pick myself up. And I'm not going to lie, there was times where I put meetings in my board calendar because I was about to tell them I quit. I did 3 times. 3 times in the last 6 months I've done that. And then I cancelled it last minute because I decided, no, actually, I can do this. So I think the biggest learning curve I've actually realised is about myself, how resilient I am. Someone said this to me, that I've just hired a director into the business, and over the last 4 months she's been in, and she went, Carrie, there's one thing I've learned about this business. She went, what? She went, is it tenacity? Is that the word? Yeah. She said, I've never met anyone like it. She says, anything can hit you and you just bulldoze through it. But I think I've shown in the business this like confident kind of person I am. But behind the scenes, it's been killing me.
Well, it's a cost each time it happens, right?
Oh,
I'm saying when you bulldoze through and it looks on the outside that it's easy for you, but actually there's a cost to your emotions.
It's 100%.
Yeah,
for sure. But I think that confidence kind of element and mental strength is the thing I've realised. Someone said to me the other day, the people that are the strongest mentally are the ones that get through this recession. Go get to the gym, go kind of meditate, go kind of make yourself mentally strong, because that's where you're going to survive. And that's what made me realise is the last 6 months is, probably when the business took a bit of a hit a little bit, maybe about 4 months ago, it was because I was taking a hit. Yeah. So it had direct impact.
Do you think being a female founder and having so much success, I mean, it's fantastic, you're such an inspiration, I'm sure, to a lot of female founders. But do you also think this imposter syndrome, this confidence piece for the female entrepreneurs is a big challenge in a world just full of white guys, basically?
100%. So I have a coach, and I asked the coach. She's been coaching agency and business owners basically for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
So she's been around the block and met a lot of people. And I said, what's the most common things that people kind of come to you for in terms of what they need help on? And she says, female, it's very different. Women, CEOs and business founders is confidence, not feeling good enough, not feeling like they should have the seat at the table.
Yeah.
And men is mostly can't build relationships with the people, struggling to make meaningful relationships with their business rather than it being a commercial thing. That's usually the two problems that she sees. And I found that really interesting. But yeah, I think it is a female thing. I think it's mostly just because I think I don't necessarily feel like I've been treated any differently as a female, especially from my business or at least the market. I think maybe I've had some different pressures come to me because I am a woman. But I think, the confidence side is definitely a thing. Yeah.
I mean, my own story, when I was, I realised I was gay. And actually, for me, it was all on my own head in a way.
Oh.
Right? And actually, it wasn't something that meant anything to anyone else.
Yeah.
But it was my own confidence problem.
Oh, 100%.
But, it's a really interesting challenge, right?
I watched something with Will Smith on it yesterday. It was an interview on Netflix. You should watch it. But he basically said 99% of the things that we often worry about it's all in our head, and it doesn't actually happen.
Yeah.
So whether that's getting that job or whether I'm going to lose that client or whatever the hell it is, 99% of the things we worry about never even happen anyway.
Yeah.
And it's just all in our heads. And I think you're right. I think it was mostly me telling me I wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Because of when I went deeper into my business and started to get quality feedback and clients and things like that, they was all happy. They was like, "You're great. Yeah, this and that." And so I knew it was my problem, and I just had to go and fix it myself. So it takes a lot of strength to be able to recognize that and then move forward with it, because there's, you see people quit, and I was at the edge of quitting. It just didn't feel worth it anymore. I was like, I didn't know.
Balance sort of tips, doesn't it?
Yeah, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I had to bring to the world. I guess that's what I lost that sense of. So I feel like I've definitely got that back now. But I think how I got that back was just spending time on me. I did something. I'll tell you actually what I did. I was at my friend's house, my best friend. And, this is a moment where I cried in front of her, and I've never cried in front of her. And she was a bit like, whoa, what's going on? Because I'm not that type of person. And I said, listen, something's going wrong with me mentally. And I drew out like a commitment chart, and I split it into 5 things. And it was work, family, friends, partners and dating and things like that, and me. And I basically said, out of 100, what percentage does each of this commitment chart get? I think I put 80% on work. I put about 10% on family, 5% on friends. And long story short, there was no more percentage left for me.
Yeah.
And I realized that. I was like, whoa, I'm just giving so much and not really giving it for me.
Yeah.
And then so over the last 2 months, I've been kind of focusing, okay, how do I get that commitment chart back up to me? I've had my hair done. I had a blow dry. So little things like that makes you feel good about yourself. So I started investing in time for me.
Yeah.
But that's because when I drew that out, I realized just how little I was giving.
A lot of people don't even understand what's the first move. I mean, you're so kind of trapped by your own feelings.
Yeah.
What do you do?
First thing I did is I went to go speak to other business owners.
Mm.
And I opened up to them. And I remember having this fear, thinking if I tell them where I'm at, they could use that against me or judge me or, whatever. But I think I just thought, well, there's nothing more I can do right now other than kind of open up and try get at least some experiences from other people. And basically I went to go speak to 2 other agency founders and business owners basically, and they told me the same thing is happening to them. And I think that I cried. Wow. I remember crying and thinking, I'm not on my own in this. Mm. And they told me stories about what's going wrong in other businesses. They told, I learned a lot around what's going right and what's wrong everywhere else. And it all kind of like fell into place of, well, that's the same thing that I'm experiencing. So I think kind of not feeling like I was on my own helped me kind of think, I can do this actually. If they can do it, I can do it kind of thing. And also like my partner, he luckily, he works in agencies as well. and he's told me some horror stories about previous jobs or whatever it is. And he just reminded me, he said, Carrie, he says, I've seen every side of your agency and plus multiple others. And he says, you guys are too good for things to fail. And I think that's really what it was. I was scared of failure.
Okay.
He says, you're not going to fail. He said, and I think I just needed that injection of like confidence in me and in the business as why. Because I think if I'm not strong enough, but the business is, then okay, I just need to sort myself out. So I think that's really what it was, is realizing that I'm not on my own, but then also somebody else telling me you can do this kind of thing, and that you're too good for it to fail.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because from the outside, everyone's looking at Rise of 7 going, wow,
Yeah.
what a story.
Yeah.
Whilst, you as the founder are going through this, really tough time.
Yeah.
I guess, just even talking to anyone and saying that things aren't as okay is a huge move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was worried about that.
Yeah.
I think I was worried about being judged. I think I'll be honest and say, because we've been successful, people have kind of, I don't know, maybe judged us to be too easy, and things are going really well out there, not really knowing what actually goes on when you run a business. I think it's safe to say anyone that's probably listening to this podcast or another podcast similar to this, running a business is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It is super, super difficult. Like, I lost my dad at 15, and some of the challenges I'd gone through running this business was harder than losing my own dad.
Wow.
Like, literally, it's a mental kind of pressure of ruining your own identity even sometimes. It's not been easy, but I do think coming out of that has only been from talking to other people. And you have to have the confidence to be able to do that. I think I had a lot of balls kind of opening up to them. And luckily, I've created a bit of a tight-knit community of people and founders and agency owners that also shared some of their stories as well. And that's what made it easier.
Wow, yeah. What's the future look like now? So you've kind of been through this, massive growth, trying to create a scalable business.
Yeah.
Trying now to look after yourself a bit more, build confidence, because there's lots of challenges. What's the future of Rise at 7, and what's the strategy?
I want to be the most recommended agency in the world.
Okay.
So other people say this is a fucking good work with. And to be that, I have to probably hire a lot more people doing roles that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
So in the next kind of 6 to 12 months, I'm going to be hiring a lot more senior people to run the business. I'm probably going to hire MDs, CEOs probably, and I'm going to step myself out of that role. I think I'm going to probably go into founder and CEO of Americas or something like that. But basically, I'm going to hire people and move out of the way to do the things that I'm not good at. So that's kind of like short-term kind of mission at the minute. And so far, it's going well. And the long-term is we've got a lot to fix internally. Do you know what? We've actually transformed the business in the last 4 months. So me going through what I've gone through personally, I've also had to kind of do that with a business. Grow up a little bit, sort of clean the house out a little bit in the business and put a lot of processes in place, do a lot of management training. And we are completely a different agency to what we was even 6 months ago.
Wow.
It's completely transformed. And I feel very proud of that because I don't think it could have continued if we continued the way we was. So I guess the future is let's grow up. Let's start, going for your accounts that are 100 mil plus doing revenue. Well, that's the sort of accounts we're looking for, global accounts. And we started scaling that up. So I think from a revenue perspective, on average, the typical client was around like 15 grand a month, something like that. And we're scaling that up to, up to 30 grand a month on average per client. So we're going for more global kind of initiative, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is hiring more senior people. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult ride, but one that is needed.
Yeah. Next chapter, eh?
Yeah,
Excellent.
definitely.
Well, thanks very much for coming on the podcast today. It's been fantastic. Yeah, thank you. And thank you everyone for watching. Please go ahead and like us, follow us, tell people about our podcasts. We're here, we're interviewing amazing people, and we're trying to share learning experience. And I think we can all say that everyone's journey is very unique and everyone is a very personal summit. So thanks for watching again.